Hello, Rob B here with Rob D, and it's another market update. It's raw, it's nearly live. We put it out a few hours after we've recorded it, and we've got lots to talk about this week. But before we dig in, it's the touchy-feely stuff. Rob, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, thanks. I've had a good week. The sun is shining again after a couple of days off, and we are past the peak, Boris tells us, and it seems highly likely that restrictions are going to be eased a bit before too long. So feeling very positive.
Good, very good. And Boris, like you said, is feeling positive as well. He's announced that apparently we are past the peak of COVID-19, which is obviously brilliant news. And he's also hinted that the easing off measures will be announced or at least discussed next week. So that's, again, really, really positive. I think you and I and the whole nation has been waiting for some sort of movement, some sort of good news in terms of the epidemic, but also the lockdown measures being eased. And I think we're all ready for that. So we'll see what next week brings, but that is very positive.
It really is positive for individuals, of course, who get back out and about again, but also for the economy, because the thing that we've said all along is that the longer this goes on for, the harder it is going to be for things to get back to normal without there being too much damage along the way. You can only prop things up for so long, and it's not like we think things are going to snap back instantly and immediately, but the quicker we get back to some semblance of normality, the less medium-term damage to the economy there's going to be. So lots of good news in a broader sense, and also good news around this week to the property market in particular, particularly around mortgages, which is something we've talked about a lot on these market updates because it is such a fundamental part of investment, and having the mortgage market functioning and having lots of products out there is so important to the success of the property market when we come out the other side of this. Two quick things on the mortgage market. The first is, for the second week in a row, there's been even more products coming onto the market. So when COVID-19 first hit, lots of lenders withdrew their products because they were trying to work out what was going on and adapt to new ways of working. They've been gradually coming back. The number of products has gone up again this week, and 85% of the buy-to-let lenders who were lending before this all started are now still lending, which is really good. Other good news is that there's been a change announced by UK Finance this week, who've said that now you can get a product transfer if you've taken a mortgage holiday. So in the past, we warned against taking mortgage holidays if you didn't absolutely need to, for multiple reasons. One of them being that your lender is unlikely to grant you a product transfer if you get to the end of a fixed term, if you do have money outstanding. But now, so many people have taken out mortgage holidays. I think it's like 1.6 million or something. I can't remember the number, but it's a big one. Because of that, it's affecting so many people that now the lenders' trade body has said, all right, fair enough, actually, we'll relax it. And so now, even if you've taken a mortgage holiday, you can get a product transfer. So a lot of the people who did do that unaware of the ramifications will now be okay. So good news, but you still shouldn't take out a mortgage holiday if you don't need to. It's something to take out if you need to, not just as a just in case.
So positive movement there. Not so positive as rent arrears. Of course, in this climate, it's going to happen. But how much is it happening? Well, it's hard to tell if you look at the data this week. If you've only read one news source, then you could believe it's 2%. If you read another news source, then it's 50%. Depends on which survey you're looking at. So 2% at one end, 50% at the other of people in rental arrears. Rob, like you said before we got on this, neither of them can be correct. They're both far too extreme.
Yeah, the 50% number is a study of institutional landlords. So you could say, well, people are more prepared to screw over a company than they are an individual. And to an extent, there's probably some truth to that, but that doesn't account for the whole gap. Also, the 2% does intuitively feel a bit low. The truth will be somewhere in between, but Rob, based on what we're seeing from our lettings portfolio, much closer to the 2% number.
Yeah, it's much lower, which is really pleasing to see. You're going to expect some, and in any climate you always have some. And actually I haven't got the exact number, but I would expect in a normal climate it's probably closer to that 2%. So have rental arrears increased? Yes, of course they have. But are they dramatically higher? Currently, and this is really encouraging, no. Now, Property Hub Live, we were so excited about announcing that at the beginning of the year. And unfortunately, because of COVID-19, it couldn't happen. It was meant to happen yesterday. I know, sad, right? And it is sad. But we will have a new date. It's not been cancelled. It's just been postponed. And as soon as we get the football fixtures, because it's going to be in Tottenham Hotspur's new stadium, we will be able to announce the new date, which is really exciting. But for those who have tickets, they're getting an extra little bonus treat. We're going to do a Property Hub live webinar in the near future. So we'll talk about the current climate and do a bit of a live Q&A. So if you have a ticket, extra bonus. You weren't going to get this. Bit of a delay, but you've got an extra session as well. So that's going to be happening in the next few weeks. And look forward to doing that, Rob. Live is always interesting, but we've managed to survive so far. And we better get used to it because we've got a whole day of it coming up.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be on the theme of how to come out stronger from coronavirus. So we're going to be talking about that, sharing some insights from what we're seeing in our business and from the people we're talking to, and having a healthy Q&A section as well, which is always my favourite bit. So if you have got your ticket for Property Hub Live, keep an eye on your emails because we'll be sending you out a link to register for that one very soon.
Now, we had something quite interesting come in over the last week. Somebody's reviewed our market updates, but they're not happy, Rob, are they?
They're not. I'll see if I can summarise this. So start out by saying on the property stuff, we're great. Thank you for that.
And they liked your books, which is also great.
Yeah, and the review ends there. No, I wish I had, but then they go on to be less than happy with what we've said recently about the press in particular, which I think it was last week we're having a little bit of a rant about the press. It's a long review. I'll try to summarise. Okay, I was trying to tone it down for you, but I don't know why because you've already read it. Hypocritical about criticising the media. You are clear of your political stance. You're a conservative voter, apparently, and always making underhand digs at left-wing policies. But then they go on to talk about how it's dangerous to undermine trust in the media. It's basically saying that journalists have a responsibility to criticise and critique the government and hold them to account. And by speaking negatively about the press, as we did last week, it's pushing people towards alternative views, conspiracy theories, and things of that ilk. So that's us told, especially you, Rob.
Especially me. You know what? There's a couple of points there which are a little bit silly. And I'm sorry if you're listening, if this is you. But I think a lot of your review, the majority of it, there's some interesting talking points there. So let's deal with a couple of silly points. So the hypocritical part, I'm being hypocritical, criticising the media because I'm a Tory. I don't really want to get into politics, but I will say this. I've voted for all three main parties in the past. And in the last election, I didn't vote Tory. We'll leave it there. But if I've given you the impression I have a strong political leaning, I don't. I change my mind every election and I base it on what I think's best for the country.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and it's not just you, because I had an angry email a while back from someone who's telling me off for being so biased in what I was talking about politically. And I think, again, they assumed that I was a Conservative voter, which I'm not. But it seems like there is a tendency for people to project a little bit. I think we're both quite careful, even if we did have strong political leanings, I think we're quite careful not to put them across, because we're aware that when you talk politics, all that happens is you're going to alienate half the country to start with. So there's really no benefit to doing it. You're not going to change anyone's mind. But nevertheless, people do still, I think, try to look for little signals and maybe project their own views a little bit.
And I think it shows what a good job we've done of being balanced, because people think we vote for a party that we don't. So I think actually we should be congratulated. The other point that I think is a little bit silly is saying that if you criticise the media, then they're going to start believing 5G is killing everyone and they're going to go to conspiracy theories. That's not what we were saying. By criticising the media, it's how they conduct themselves. It's not criticising the content and what they're covering. It's criticising how they cover it. So I think now we've got a couple of silly points out the way, I think there's actually some real interesting stuff to unpack here about the media. For me, one of the first things I think is worth looking at is the critique that the media have of the government, and the review said that, they should do that. I think the media should ask good questions of anybody. If that's their job to interview and get to the story, it's asking good questions. I think where people feel let down by the media is loaded questions and aggressive questions, or particularly negatively framed questions. There's a very big difference here. You can ask really good questions, and the best journalists will, by the way, ask really good questions. It's those that are possibly a bit lazy or a bit more sensationalist that go with the more loaded questions, and I think that's what people don't like. It's certainly what we don't like. And is it the media's job to critique the government and challenge them on their views? Yes, I agree to a point it is, but it's also the job of the opposition. There is someone in place to do that very thing. I know the media see themselves as the opposition to any government or any politician, but actually they are in place to do just that. But if the media only criticised politicians, then you could be forgiven going, well, you know what, they just keep it to that small circle and the rest of society are let off. but they don't. They hammer on the whole at most people and a negative on the whole of most people and scenarios. And I think it gets people down. And I think, Rob, people have really noticed it more. They've probably gone a bit too far this time around. And that's why confidence in the media, not just our confidence in the media, it seems everyone's confidence in the media is at an all-time low.
Yeah, there's a couple of separate reports, one of which we referenced the other week, showing that confidence in the press has absolutely collapsed in recent weeks, and collapsed from a pretty low base to start with. I think that does get damaging at that point. When you feel like you can't trust the press in your country, then that is a really bad situation to be in. And journalism does have a very important job. In the past, it's quite easy to think of really important things that are truly in the public interest that have been uncovered by journalists through really tenacious and in-depth reporting. They've discovered things and brought them to the public attention that we wouldn't otherwise have known and that are really important. And so journalism, when done well, is so important. One of the reasons that it bothers me so much when I see how I perceive it to be done badly and damaging the whole enterprise. And we were talking off mic after we recorded last week, Rob, about how we unpopularly felt a bit sorry for politicians because of the way that they just get criticised at every turn. I do think that the tone of the questioning, not the questions themselves, but the tone of them and almost the implication and the trying to get a gotcha is a large part of the reason why people are so frustrated with politicians never actually saying what they think and not having any content in what they say, because they know that whatever they say, it's going to get picked up on in the most negative possible way. But the review does make an important point, which is you have to be very aware at the moment of conspiracy theories and news that, I hate saying fake news, but things that are not particularly well sourced and things that just do the rounds that are based on nothing, but everyone takes them at face value. There's a real fine line. There's a balance to be struck between having a healthy skepticism of the mainstream media without turning completely away from that and getting pushed to the fringes of journalism, in inverted commas. So it's really difficult, but it's very important for us to do to try to make sense of the world.
It is, and I think it's also worth pointing out that this isn't new for us. We've constantly picked up different news articles over the years and gone, look at this headline, and look how different the content is, how sensational this headline is and misleading, and actually, let's get to the truth of it. And we've dug deep ourselves and gone, right, okay, look, actually, if you look at all the information, this is false. Or if you look at all the information, this is misleading. And is that ever going to stop? Probably not, but it would be great to see less of it. And what it would be great to see more of is the positive work that the media can do. The person who left the review pointed out how the media has highlighted the work Captain Tom has done. And I agree. It's been fantastic. You know, as we record this, he's raised over £30 million, which is more than the big night in, the celebrity-driven one from last week. This is one man with a lot of attention and focus, and the country's got right behind it. So I think that is great that the media's done it. But actually, part of me is like, gutted that, why is this a one-off? Imagine what the media could do if they focused their work on for good and highlighting the wonderful things that happens in society. The Captain Tom thing is amazing. But if they did something like that week in, week out, or not day in, day out, you know, their focus at the media is balanced, where here's some things that have happened, which aren't good news. But by the way, here's an equal balance of things that have happened, which are brilliant and uplifting and should give you faith in humanity and make you feel good about the areas that you live in and feel positive about all races and all people across the world and all countries. But we don't. Unfortunately, we don't. The Captain Tom work that's been done by the media is generally the exception. There are some great people out there, and there are some people who really promote positivity in the world of media. But unfortunately, they are few and far between. And another example of that is Chris Evans on Virgin Radio. I don't listen regularly, but whenever I do capture a bit of what he's saying, he's so upbeat, and his message is so positive that it's just a joy to listen to. And it's a shame that more people don't do that. So I completely agree with you, Mr. or Mrs. Reviewer. But to the person who's left the review, I completely agree with you. It is great that they have highlighted him, but I just wish they did a bit more. I tell you what, Rob, he probably didn't think we were going to do this, did he? The person who left the review.
No, and we've completely gone against what he said we should do, which is stick to property. We talked about property a bit. We've probably just been talking about the media for about 3 times as long. But hey, we did get to the property stuff as well, and there's loads of positivity there. So I think on balance, this is a pretty positive market update. And whether you like it, whether you don't like it, if you find it useful, if there's something you wish we'd talk about more or less, we would love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you also feel we should stick to property, then let us know. We can do just that. But we do enjoy talking about a wide range of topics, and often many of them will have an impact on the world of property in one way or another. But if you prefer these conversations to be private, that's okay. We won't cry. Let us know. But what we can promise you is that we will be back with a very heavy property themed Ask Rob and Rob on Tuesday, and again, the Property Podcast on Thursday. So until then, take care everyone, stay safe. If you can, have a bit of fun too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.